Hello, everybody. Sorry I was a little later today than I expected, but I had some things going on today. But hold on just a second. Let me get this shared on Twitter so that other people can join.
Tick, tock, man to walk. Your silence breeds complacency. Tick, tock, man to walk. Stephen Avery, he shall walk free. Again, where to start, I don't know. So long ago, they set their sights on Avery. He should have been out, oh there is no doubt. All those involved like
hello, everybody.
integrity.
Just give me a moment. Weird. Okay. All right. Whoa. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hello, Michelle. Michelle Blair. Hello, Trixie. It's going okay. Not too bad. Got some of these shirts here. Got them out there today. Sent a few out. In fact, need a little help from you guys regarding that. But I'll get to that in a minute. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Mary Henry. Hello, Rhonda, and hello, Sharon. Hey, Mark, how's it going, buddy? Hello, Yelly. How's it going there, Paul, the Mad Scotsman? Dude, okay. All right, Paul's over here havering. Everybody enjoy that. It's great fun. Hello, Drew. Hey, Justin. Hello, 1965. Beans. How's it going, everybody? So a few things I wanted to kind of talk about today or whatever. Mainly obviously we'll answer questions from you guys, but one thing I was looking for you guys to possibly help me out with is down in the info below I left a link to a tweet, and I would like, for those of you that have a Twitter account and that sort of thing and don't mind, I'd like for you to go and like it, just like the tweet, or possibly even retweet it. Just want to call a little attention to it. What the tweet's about is it's about these t-shirts right here. That these were originally made up for me by Mr. Hodnott and Mr. Capaldi. They got together and had the idea. Anyways, what I want to do is I was hoping that Steve Drizzen and Laura would accept a shirt from me, and that they would pose together in a picture wearing them, just to create further awareness for Brendan and that sort of thing. So I'm not trying to really be pushy, but I figured if maybe the tweet got a lot of attention, they might give it a second look and say, hey, how do we get one? So that's what I'm hoping for. Everything I want to do with these shirts is to help Brendan. For those that don't know, all the money from these shirts goes to Brendan. It's just these are strictly something I want out there. I swear I'd sell them for $2 if I knew right now I could sell 1 million of them. If I sold them for $2, I probably would go ahead and take the loss and sell them for $2 just to know that 1 million of them are out there in circulation, representing for Brendan. But so anyways, small thing, if you guys don't mind going and liking that tweet just to bring a little attention to it, so that they will maybe hopefully respond to it. 'Cause, 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 What is the dude going to paralyze us with tonight? Oh, well, you know, you don't. If you think I'm paralyzing you, dude, you know, you can. Hey, so Paul's gonna start going live tomorrow, folks. So be prepared. You know, get your popcorn ready. So, how many do we got? 6. Oh, wow. Check something here. That's odd. Alright, so yeah, I suppose it's kind of late there for the UK. I usually do my calls with Paul where it's like about 11 o'clock my time, which is about 6 o'clock his time. It's funny. But when we would do our calls, we would tend to do it that way. Hoping the part 2 is going to be good. Have you heard how the ratings are now after the weekend? Well, as far as I can tell, it's really kind of rating pretty well. I mean, a lot of people are looking at it and looking at the evidence in it. I mean, they're looking at, you know, what the testing is saying, and they're just seeing the factual part of it, and they're, you know, people are intrigued, I guess is the best way to put it. Even people that, especially people that were sitting on the fence, they are now very intrigued with everything that Zellner's brought to the table. So I've been noticing that, because I kind of navigate different Facebook groups, different stuff like that. And I was in the Innocent Guilty Facebook group. That's where they have basically both sides in there. And it just seems a lot of the people that are holding on to Stephen and Brendan being guilty are now, they're falling back to one argument, essentially. It's kind of pathetic kind of to watch, really. But they're falling back to one argument, and that argument is, this is terrible for Teresa Halbach's family. And the fact that people could watch this show and disgrace Teresa Halbach's memory, and it's basically the kind of argument kind of goes like that. Just like you see Brad Schimmel do every time he's confronted with an uncomfortable question in the press and stuff, he's immediately evoking the Halbach's name and all that sort of stuff, right? So, it's, yeah. Can you remind us the timing on court proceedings with Zellner and likely date for post-conviction hearing if granted? So, yeah, so Zellner's due date for her filing her new appeal over the CD and the Brady violation, as the CD is, that's due by December 20th. Then, if I'm not mistaken, the state has, from then, 40 days to file their response. And then, I believe after that, well, and they could ask for an extension, which could get them like an additional, I think, 25 days. So it could potentially be somewhere in February or March when that happens. And then Zellner will have something like, I think, 15 days to reply to the state's response. And then it's kind of a guess as to when the judges will get around to making a decision on it or calling for possibly oral arguments. So I would say we're looking at least probably May or June of 2019 before we find out anything from the judges. But like I said, in December we're going to be able to read a filing by Zellner that she's going to file with the Court of Appeals. We're going to be able to read that. And then sometime after that, the state is going to file a response, and we're going to be able to read that. This is how it's been going. For those of you who are just joining in because you just watched Making a Murderer Season 2, and you haven't really been following for the last 2.5 years since the first Making a Murderer, This is what's been happening all along. When we were going through Brendan's process, it was a process of, Brendan lawyers would file, and then the state would respond, and then Brendan's lawyers would reply, and it went like this every step up the chain and everything. So that's what's basically going to happen with Stephen now. So in December, we're going to get Zellner's filing. Sometime around February or March, we're going to get the state's response, and then I would say sometime around May or June, May probably, we're going to get Zellner's reply to that, and then sometime in June, July, who knows how long maybe the appeals judges will take, possibly could maybe go into maybe September or August, maybe, August or September, who knows. But like I said, along the way, we're going to have filings with the court to read, and we'll be able to follow along somewhat, and always we'll be able to discuss those filings when they happen and that sort of stuff. So there's always plenty of stuff there. Before you start gaslighting, I'm not related to the other Fallon. Hi Meredith, and oh hi guys, hey, how you doing? I'm not Fallon. Okay, L Fallon is not Tom Fallon. If somebody out there is thinking he is Tom Fallon, he's not. CASO stands for Calumet Administrative Sheriff's Offices or whatever. It basically just means the Calumet County Sheriff's Office, and it's the investigation reports. All of the investigation reports in the Teresa Halbach case. Hi Sam, greetings. Sorry about the ads. Because it's easy to deflect from the question about clear evidence of their innocence to the Halbach family, because none of us can argue that we feel terrible about what happened. None of us can argue that we feel terrible about what happened to Teresa Halbach. Absolutely, in all of this, Teresa Halbach is always there in my mind, and how terrible this is, how absolutely terrible this is for her. And yeah, I agree with that, Meredith and Joe. Hi, Sweezy. I think it's a travesty that her real killer is still out there. They shouldn't want someone who has so much scientific evidence proving their innocence incarcerated. Yeah, and that's kind of a way I reason it too. That honestly, if it was my loved one, I would be maybe at this point getting a little bit pissed that the law enforcement that I trusted did such a sloppy, poor job that just. I could see myself being a little bit pissed off at the law enforcement if I was in their shoes at this point. But it could be they haven't reached that point yet. But we'll have to see what happens. Hey, what was the one line in any of the episodes which made your blood boil the most? Oh. It's still to this day is it comes down to Brendan's interrogation, and I was happy to see that MAM2 really drew attention to it this time, because they had Barb asking Mark, "Did you pressure him?" And she's referring to Brendan. And what you don't know, because they didn't show right before that, is they were showing what happens right before Barb asks that. Is you see that exchange before Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender walk back into the room, where Brendan tells her they got to my head. Okay, so at that point we all know, as soon as he says that, pretty much within seconds, Tom and Mark are coming back into the room, right? And shortly thereafter, they actually had the clip in MAM2, and I thought it was brilliant, where she asks Tom, "Were you pressuring him?" And at first, Mark. And at first Mark tries to play stupid. He goes, "What? Oh, you mean who? Steven?" And she's like, "No, him." And she points to Brendan. And that's when Mark starts going, "No, we told him to tell us the truth," and blah, 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 blah. When he starts going off, talking about how we told him to tell the truth, we've been doing this a long time, and we know this, and we know that, and we know blah, 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 blah. I just want to, like that. So, anyway, That's one of the things that makes my blood boil. What about the testing of the other DNA in Teresa's car, the unidentified DNA? I know, right? Why is it all? I mean, why do we have mysterious DNA that's not been identified? You know, it's unbelievable that it takes so long. Well, not so unbelievable in a sense that how long? I mean, we know that it takes so long for so many other wrongful convictions, 10 to 15 years, sometimes 20 and more, sometimes even around the 30-year mark where people are getting exonerated. And yeah, the justice system needs some reform. Okay. I still don't get why people think SA would commit this. Exactly. There's no motive for Stephen. That's been one of my problems with it. Why didn't all the stuff about Barr being pressured by the cops to point the finger at Stephen Avery being a molester come out? Well, it has come out, but it's only come out because because a bunch of people dug in. Of course, the prosecution's not going to share all that with the public. They're not going to muddy up their case. They're not going to give people a reason to question them. I think that would be the reason why it hasn't been heard of until now. So the naysayers are basically standing on Teresa's grave to boost their argument. Yeah, essentially, kind of. That's kind of what it comes down to. It's just like I said, it's just like when Brad Schimmel does it. When Brad Schimmel is doing news interviews and they ask him an uncomfortable question about Brendan Dassey, he immediately evokes the Halbach family, and that's right now that's the cloak, that's the security blanket that they're using. But I get a feeling the Halbachs are going to start pulling back at some point. They may not openly go against law enforcement and stuff like that in the area, but they may start pulling back. And may not want to be so closely linked with law enforcement. Hey, photography, but Joe is me, Joe. I know it's you, Joe. I knew it was you, Joe. I didn't know if maybe you and your wife might have actually been there together or something, but I basically knew it was you, buddy. Joe bought a Control Question T-shirt. Everybody, he was sporting it, and he actually posted a picture of himself wearing it. And drinking a brew. Why is Dietering still working on the case if he has been retired? Okay. He did retire, but they brought him back just for this. When they reopened the Halbach investigation, they brought him back just for this. And I think the reason why they did that, and honestly, I agree with the reasoning. As much as I don't care much for the players in this case, I agree with the reasoning on it. They brought him back because he was a familiar face, and especially when you're going to go around potentially reopening old wounds, you'd like to maybe have a familiar face that people recognize instead of trying to send out some green newbie who knows nothing from nothing, essentially, right? That's my guess as to why that happened. So Bobby's the prime suspect. Yeah, in terms of Zellner, Bobby is the prime suspect in her eyes. You're welcome, Joe. You're welcome for the Control Question T-shirt, buddy. Hi, Lori. Still don't get that Scott was hunting somewhere else that day, yet Bobby was hunting behind his house. How did it? Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's some really odd, suspicious things going on there with Scott and Bobby. That's why they've come under suspicion. And they've gotten themselves, and they basically have gotten themselves onto the list of, well, the same list that Ryan's on. It's the list you get on with Zellner that if you don't remove yourself from it, you remain on it, and it's not a list you want to be on. Anytime Kratz opened his mouth. I believe that was in reference to what made blood boil most. That was Joe saying anytime Kratz opened his mouth. I love it. That's a good one. Damn, I have to go, folks. We'll check it out later. Okay, we'll see you there. Oops. Here we go. Dang it. This stupid thing. Why ask queso questions? Bobby cannot call a task in multiple different versions. Yeah, Bobby has multiple versions to a story, retains crazy details, a completely made up story. I agree. The biggest thing for me is how did he take a shower in literally like a minute and a half? I mean, it wasn't much of a shower, to be perfectly honest, if he did, and it just seems odd. The state wanted to get their finger out. Why take all this time, leaving Stephen and Brendan to suffer all the longer? They should get down to it and see. Yeah, well, they have a vested interest in keeping Stephen locked up because they don't want to open the floodgates of the wrongfully convicted in Wisconsin. They're terrified, and they don't want to have to pay the price tag of when the wrongfully convicted begin to pour out of prison there. The state, okay, yeah. Okay, Scott Bladorn had a relationship with Teresa. Yes, he did. They did have some sexual contact of some sort, but apparently Teresa, I don't know how to say it, but apparently she kind of got over it quicker than Scott, and was, I guess, avoiding that situation with him, I guess, from that point. She was also very involved with a married guy named Brad Check. Absolutely. My blood boils still when Kaczynski says his client is guilty before even meeting Brendan. Oh, absolutely. And the way he's hamming it up to the press, where he like starts talking and like it's like he thinks he's in the freaking studio or something. He's like, oh, you know what? Hold on, let me start again. It's like, this is live, idiot. Teresa was at the family gathering the weekend before she went missing. Why has no one with Ellie asked the people that saw her if the car was damaged? Well, I think they are trying to ask, and nobody remembers it. That's, I think, the problem. And they're still desperate to find proof of it. Like I said, their final resort, man, they got Mike Hallbach digging through all of his old computers, looking, desperately hoping that there's a picture of that RAV4 with the damaged headlight in there. Or damaged blinker light. Kelly is the worst. Oh, yeah. Kelly's a piece of crap. He's absolutely a piece of crap. Let's see here. Mark. Sorry, I have to go for... Oh, well, we'll see you, Mark. Sorry, buddy. We'll see you. You're wearing it now. Awesome. Hey, you know, and I'm wearing mine. That means 2 right now. Hey, right on. So, hope the Hallbachs do that. Do reach that stage. I really do hope they do. Just ordered my Avery Salvage Yard shirt. Yep, I know. And I was wearing my Avery Salvage Yard shirt yesterday. That was the one I was wearing yesterday. Sadly, I feel like SABD, if SABD ever get a chance to be released, they will try that Alfred police stuff. I really hope not. And I think their lawyers are certainly better than that. My blood boil moment was anything to do with Stephen's parents. Yeah, I love Dolores and Alan. I was so mad when I was there in June that I didn't get to meet Alan. Unfortunately, he was up at Crivets, and I just didn't have time to make the drive up to Crivets. But I so wanted to meet him and didn't get the chance. But I got to meet Earl, and I got to meet Chuck. I was actually surprised because I always felt Chuck was always a little bit kind of just kind of gruff and kind of the enforcer there. And but he kind of at one point, him and I started talking about the case, and we were behind Stephen's garage there and talking about the fire and he was telling me about how he did the berm around the property and all that sort of stuff and everything, and I was just really impressed. He's a really, really nice guy, really good guy. He's actually pretty smart. It was, yeah, and then I got to hang out with Earl a little bit over in the shop. He was working in the shop and dismantling some things or whatever, and I got to talk to him a little bit when I was looking for the bathroom. But so it was fun over there, but I didn't get to meet Alan. I was bummed about that. Can't wait to get my t-shirt. Yeah, well, you know, it's hard to criticize Night Rider. I mean, she had a strategy. She was trying, maybe she was. It's always, hindsight's always 20/20, right? Monday morning quarterback is easy, right? It's always harder in the moment. But I don't know. I think that Judge Can is just a jerk. And I intend to do a video pretty soon to illustrate just exactly how and why, how much and why I think he's a jerk. Depends on how much the Hallbox know. We can't forget that KH called to set up a funeral for TH the very next day that the bone were apparently found in the Avery burn pit. Yeah, that quick? They didn't even get the death certificate until December. I think it was December 10th or 11th, and it was incomplete, and it had things crossed out, and it was a mess. I had a funny feeling when Barb was talking about the older brothers not visiting Brendan. Could they have known something and didn't disclose it? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose all these things are possible. I don't know. It's hard to speculate. I think it is storyline from Dukes of Hazzard. TH Blood. What the Calumet County and Manitowoc County Sheriff's Departments, like Boss Hogg and Roscoe P. Coltrane and his dog Flash, and Ernie. Where do I get a shirt? Lori, you can just send me an email. Let me see. Did I put that down here in the info? Let me see. Okay, I didn't. Okay, so Lori, I will leave a link in the info below the video after I'm done here, and it's an email address, and you can email me there. Tell me size, color, and your address so that I can figure out what your shipping will be, and that's it. Just so look for the link, then the email link I'll leave you in the info below, so you can get yourself a shirt. Framed all the way, yes. Go Dodgers, absolutely go Dodgers. I've been giving Charlie Barron's crap all day. Actually, probably this whole week I've been giving Charlie Barron's crap because he was pulling for the Brewers, and so I was messing with him, going, oh, you know, hey, the Brew Crew got beat by the Blue Crew, man. So I've been messing with him, and then I told him, I said, you know, it's really karma for what you guys did to it's for karma for what Wisconsin did to Brendan Dassey, you know. So I was messing with Charlie Barron's a little bit. I don't know if you guys know who Charlie Barron's is. Very funny comedian. He's from Wisconsin. He lives in Wisconsin. He does a little thing on YouTube called the Manitowoc Minute. Very hilarious. So I've been messing with him all week because he was a Brewers fan. Al seems like a great guy, still making jokes. Yeah, I love Al. I mean, even though he looks like he's gotten older since the first one and all that, I mean, he still seems pretty sharp. His mind is there. His ears, you know, he doesn't hear as well as he used to, obviously. But I think in terms of his mind, I think his mind is still very sharp. Can you timeline Bobby Steve, stepdad? On Twitter, they have the stepdad going back in time. I think I know what you're saying. When working out the timeline of events right now, the information that's there causes certain things to not line up time wise in terms of linear time. You know, things like she said, seems like somebody had to travel back in time or something. I think that's just because the facts are incomplete at this point. But I'd have to look into what you're saying. To be sure. I'm sorry, Lori. Let me ask you this: timeline in terms of what? What exactly are you looking for? If you're looking for a timeline of Teresa getting to the salvage yard and leaving, there is an actual video created by Kathleen Zellner that they showed part of in the second season. But if you want to see the whole thing, I can get you a link for it. I think Laura had lost that initial appeal. If Laura had lost that initial appeal, she would have went down a different road. But once she won, then won again, it was easy to push because it seemed so certain, right? Dukes of Hazzard would do a better job. Oh, you mean Boss Hogg and Roscoe P. Coltrane would do a better job? I used to love Dukes of Hazzard when I was a kid. I still like it, but I watch it now and I realize how campy it is. So, but I still think Daisy Duke looks freaking hot in her Daisy Dukes. I mean, who doesn't? Dukes of Hazzard would, yeah. There is no timeline that fits with the prosecution story. Absolutely. The prosecution story is an absolute wreck. Thoughts on the number of Brady violations, mainly the CD and the searches computer, in case of 2.0, getting an evidentiary hearing or a new trial. See, my personal feeling is that the evidentiary hearing is inevitable at this point. The reason why I feel that is because Tom Fallon himself figured for sure after what she filed that there was going to be an evidentiary hearing. You can tell he was all ready to comply and go along and let her test this other evidence, and he was beginning to get on board with this is happening. And then Judge Angela Sukowitz made her decision, and all of a sudden he's just like putting on the brakes, pulling back, and you know what I mean? So that leads me to believe that a fair amount of legal minds in the state of Wisconsin thought her post-conviction motion had merit. And so I think that no matter what, it's inevitable. I think the appeals court is eventually just going to go, you know what, we just need an evidentiary hearing to sort this crap out at this point. And I think they're right. I think they're absolutely correct. I would love to see this go to an evidentiary hearing so that all this stuff can get argued out and argued about. Both sides can present their arguments, and reasonable minds can take all that information and make an informed decision. That's what I want. Do you think that with the recent release of MAM2, the compelling evidence, very compelling, does Bobby confess? I don't know what Bobby's going to do. Also keep in mind that all that may end up happening here is Bobby goes down to Zellner and starts to tell her about everything the state was doing, putting pressure on him to get him to do something they wanted. I think that's a possibility of something that could happen here. So like I said, Ryan and Bobby and Scott, these three, they're on her list right now. They're on that list. That list. You know what I'm talking about, right? That list. You get off that list by going in and talking to her and letting her know what was going on or whatever, so that she can then go, okay, I don't think you had anything to do with this, and she takes you off that list. If you don't care and you don't mind being on that list, you know, who knows what Bobby's going to do. But I would say he's either going to stick to his guns or he's going to go to Zellner and he's going to spill whatever it is. Him on the sofa was OMG one of the funniest thing. It's definitely a guy in front of the TV thing. That, and I don't think like I said, I don't think he could hear her because his hearing isn't so good anymore, right? I don't think he could hear Dolores until she actually came over there and like hit him on the head or whatever it was she did to get his attention. I just don't think he could hear her. But yeah, certainly once she got his attention, he was just like, oh, you could tell because he was just like melted into that couch, and he could just tell he did not want to move. So he's like just like slowly getting up, like, oh, and you know, grudging about it and everything. I thought it was hilarious. Let's see. Not very rested. Not very related, but what are your thoughts on the star 6-7 calls? Many see this as very incriminating. I don't see the star 6-7 calls as incriminating. I don't. The reason why is that Stephen was using star 6-7 a lot at the time because he was becoming a bit of a local celebrity, being on the news all the time because of the Avery Commission and all those things, and he was up at, standing up at podiums with the governor and other people like that, and so he was becoming a bit of a local celebrity. So he wasn't wanting to share his number every time he called, and I think he was it was basically he was at a point where he was dialing star 6-7 most of the time just out of habit. And so I don't know. I don't really think it's very incriminating personally. They play the interview with Bobby, and they're very clear that he wants to clear his name. Yeah. We would have been way better off if they brought in KZ for the on-bank. Well, maybe. But Brendan's lawyers are Brendan's lawyers. So KZ said even if BOD does confess, the state will find some way to not count it. That's probably true. I loved when Mama needed help at the stove and Paul was... Yeah, right. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And he couldn't hear her. And oh my God. Yeah, that was a really, really funny bit. All those drop calls, though, that's why I feel like Ryan... Oh, yeah, the drop calls that were clearly law enforcement. Yeah, I have a video where I show him kind of, you know, being himself. It's called... Ryan Hillegas is quite a dodgy, or is dodgy as hell, or I can't remember exactly what I called it, but in that one, Dean and Jerry are asking him about those calls, and he is evading, man. Yeah, that guy. It's all he does. I am happy Zelda decided to be a wrongful conviction attorney. She is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And one of the things that I liked that Zellner said that I thought was really, really poignant. She said, when you start finding out what really happened, everything starts to click. Everything starts to fall into place and go click, 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 so that you really know that it is what happened, because all the little pieces fall together and go ding, 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 ding. So I thought that was very brilliant for her to say. I don't agree with the list. Stephen Avery should never have talked to the cops. Don't talk to the police ever. And a lot of people feel that way. Dang it, this stupid thing keeps... What's the deal with click calls in 2018? Ridiculous, right? Definitely. Nobody... I mean, who makes collect calls anymore, right? Ryan Hillegas needs to talk to KZ, and the more he avoids her, the more guilty he looks. Absolutely right, Joe. Absolutely. The more he continues to not cross himself off the list, the more suspicious he looks. And which brings me back around to, who was the one that was harassing Teresa that Tom Pierce was talking about? Who was it? If it was Ryan, then a lot of things click up, don't they? Explains why Ryan would have the day planner that Teresa wrote on that day and hadn't gone home. It would explain why he's lying about how the damaged blinker, how she claimed it on an insurance and got a lump sum and just chose not to repair it. I mean, all of a sudden a lot of things about Ryan go clickety click click click, right? So Ryan's in trouble. He's in hot water, and if he doesn't remove himself from it, I think it means that he's the guy. Because I'm serious. I need to know who this person was harassing Teresa that Tom Pierce talks about. I know a lot of people say it was Ryan, and that's fine. Maybe it was. But if it wasn't, then we need to know who that is. But Ryan certainly has enough to be concerned about, because Teresa clearly did avoid photographing a wedding because he was going to be in the wedding party. That is irrefutable. KZ has a great Twitter feed. Yeah, she does. Still don't understand why Scott and Bobby testified against Stephen. I never understood that either. I still don't. And then we hear from Barb and Scott on the prison call that Bobby says she left. And then what do we hear when John Dietering is talking to him? He says that she didn't leave. That he saw her going towards Stephen's trailer. Bobby's going to have to deal with the problems that Bobby's creating for himself. Essentially, I think we're at the point where there's going to be people that can step forward and tell the truth and clear themselves, and then we're going to be left with a person or people who don't have an option to step forward and clear themselves because they're the one. That's kind of my feeling, possibly at this point in time. So, do we know for sure he pressed star 67, not just a private phone? He used to use star 67. We know that. Suspicious fellow, yes, indeed. Ryan Hillegas needs to put his ego aside and talk to KZ. Yeah, unless he's the guy. I mean, that could be why he hasn't talked to her. He could be the guy. So, this is where we're at. I mean, she's down to it. She's got her list, and she's got people desperately avoiding her like she's the plague, and so that, you know, I gotta imagine Ryan's not sleeping too good these days. Wasn't it the married man Teresa was seeing that was harassing her? I don't recall hearing about that. I don't know about that. If you have something about that, feel free to post a link to the document in the comment section after the video is done, and we'll click that link and go over and take a look and see what you're talking about. But as far as I know, her and Brad Check eventually broke it off, and it was just that was it. It was done. The Star 67 calls are not incriminating. It's weird they can trace back and find out who was making the unwanted. Well, they probably can, or I don't know. Actually, I wonder. I do wonder about that. I mean, I know KZ got to be able to get her hands on the phone records at this point, so maybe she hasn't looked at that, or I don't know. We'll have to see. Was it true Teresa had a hobby of photographing nude couples? It wasn't a hobby. It was like a sideline thing. She made side money doing like boudoir photos for couples. Scott hated Steve. Still does. He absolutely, yeah. I don't understand his absolute bias and hatred towards Stephen. The way he complains about Stephen in the new queso investigation that they opened up last year. The way he continually talks about Stephen and complains about Stephen is very odd to me, very strange to me. I don't understand why it would be his place to even complain about the things that he's complaining about. It's just strange and odd. Who do you think Zellner feels is the killer? Zellner feels that Scott and Bobby are the killers at this point in time. Are the bones they found Teresa's? I think so, but I have an open mind. Does a new trial have to take place, or can people be subpoenaed to testify without a trial? You have to have a hearing of some sort. You have to have some kind of court session convened, and most likely be an evidentiary hearing, because then you can call people in to testify. You can introduce physical pieces of evidence. So the evidentiary hearing is what it's going to take. And what happens is at the end of the evidentiary hearing, the judge hearing the case can then go, okay, I've heard enough. I think that this conviction deserves to be overturned. I am remanding this back, and the state has 90 days to, whatever it is. Okay, so, or, like I said, the judge can go the other way, and after the evidentiary hearing, the judge can decide, oh, well, there's just not enough here. I can't overturn this conviction at this time, whatever, and then nothing happens, essentially. But the evidentiary hearing is what we got to get to. I think they need to investigate more of Teresa's lifestyle. That's exactly what Zellner's expert on investigations has been saying, and that's what Zellner and her investigators are doing. Investigating the victim. They call it victimology. I'm counting on Bobby and Scott as the killers. Before people... Sorry, typo. Okay. Scott originally stood up for SA in the first queso interviews. Did he? Did he? I must have missed those. Wow. Okay. Hi, Lindsay. I'm not saying that the married man was harassing her, but is a possibility in MAM2. It's mentioned. Oh, sure, certainly a possibility. Certainly. The bones don't have enough DNA markers to actually be conclusive, said to be hers. Sherry Culhane's didn't. The FBI did mitochondrial. And I have a microbiologist friend of mine that tells me that the DNA test done by the FBI was not very conclusive either. And I hope to someday get her on a video, or at least to do maybe a series of phone conversations with her, so that she can effectively teach me enough about microbiology and to explain why the FBI's mitochondrial DNA test was not as conclusive as they would have you think. I thought Scott and Bobby were the killers the first time I saw. Yeah, Scott and Bobby rubbed me wrong the first time too. From the first time I watched it, absolutely. Let's see here. I absolutely love seeing KZ in action. The way you could really see her mind tick until she was, yeah, absolutely. She's a bulldog, man. She just goes after it. She's like, I'm here to find the truth. Oh, I think I see a hint of it, you know, and she goes after it like a dog for a bone. She's just, nothing gets in her way. After the trial, Scott said Steve was correct to be in jail in a news interview, right? Scott saying all that stuff about Steven and how he got what he deserved, but then says that Brendan is innocent and all that, right? Yeah, he's very contradictory. It's very strange. Awesome how far Zellner is getting. How far is Zellner getting an evidentiary hearing? Well, that's what we're waiting for right now. She's going to be filing on December 2nd. I'm sorry, on December 20th, she files her motion, and then, like I said, within, I believe it's 40 days or maybe 35 days, the state will have to respond, but they can file for an extension and get a little more time. So, anyways, so between December 20th and basically April, the end of April, we will see some written documents. Like I said, a motion filed by KZ, a response from the state, and then a reply from KZ after the state responds. And from that point, the appeals court will take that, and they will decide whether or not they want to hear oral arguments, or if they just want to decide on it right then. And so that's where it's at. That's so strange. For reportedly, yeah, the truck driver in the Colburn thing, absolutely, very strange, very odd. I said Scott and Bobby did it since season 1, yeah. Hi, Kareem. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, that was very odd with Hillegas moving in after. That was, yes, Ryan moving in. I mean, there's just so much about him, dude, that's just, like, just screams, look at me. Trial transcripts, day 11, said that the Loki was a 1 in a billion match, but that assumes a random sampling. It wouldn't be that accurate if there was some tampering. Well, I'd have to look at what you're talking about to review that. I know that the FBI ended up having to do a mitochondrial DNA test, and that was what was used. That it was eventually the FBI that declared her dead, and Kratz went along with it, so that he never actually had to say it himself. It's very, very odd. Very cloak and dagger kind of crap was going on. By the way, I don't know what you do for work, but this is your calling. Oh, well, thank you, Sean. Actually, what I do is very technical. I'm a home automation technician. So, but I just have a very high reading comprehension, and reading these legal papers just makes sense to me. Usually a predator likes to keep close to relive. Yes, absolutely. That is common with predator-type individuals. Scott was helping push the state BS narrative about making Steve a molester because he spent time with his nephew. He was in jail for most of Brendan's life. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. If Brendan is released, would some of the charges against Steven be dropped? No. They would never drop any charges against Steven, but literally all they've got against Steven right now is that he was in possession of the .22 rifle that he shouldn't have had. And then the murder of Teresa Halbach. They didn't get him for mutilation of a corpse because the jury voted not guilty on that, and so I believe it's only those 2 charges. It's just the murder and the gun charge, and I'm sure he's served enough time on the gun charge already. So vacating the murder charge would be able to get him out. It's just not going to happen overnight, unfortunately. First is strange when she didn't show up for work Tuesday. Yeah, I know. Nobody seemed to care for 3 days. It's very odd. How do we know it's December 20th that she files? Because she recently asked for an extension. She was supposed to have filed I believe it was like September 30th or something like that, but she asked for an extension and it got extended to December 20th. That happened before Making a Murderer Season 2 came out, so many of you probably just don't know about it yet, but it got moved forward and now it's going to be December 20th. Ryan and Colburn's body language yeah, absolutely. Did Zellner actually dig over where the dogs I don't know, but I would assume probably she did dig over there. With the DNA and the FBI testing said they had only like 7 match markers. Okay, so Sherry Culhane's testing only matched 7 Loki or something like that, right? And you need 6. Well, back at the time you needed 14 Loki. So Sherry's test only matched, which was a normal DNA test, only matched 7 Loki. The FBI took the DNA that they had, and they took it back to their labs, and they did what's called a mitochondrial DNA test. That's when they declared that their test identified it as Teresa and blah da 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 da. Now, like I was saying about my microbiologist friend, they dispute the FBI's claims that it proved that it was definitively Teresa, and that sort of thing. So, like I said, I'll try to get to that one of these days. Hi, Joy. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about being late. We still love you. Where is Peter Grant Kaczynski tonight? Well, I guess Peter Grant might be busy. Couldn't make it. I worry Steven's parents won't live to see him set. Yeah, I know. I worry about that too. He's been so strong in his pursuit. I know. It's, gotta love his spirit. I hate it when the judge is sentencing Steve and he says he fears for all of these women. He was in jail for 18 years and no other. I know. I know. It's so ridiculous. The things that Judge Willis says are really, really ridiculous. Hi, Melissa. It's okay if you're late. No worries. What are the possibilities to get Steven released now? Well, his appeal is ongoing. Ryan Hillegas probably wasn't strong enough to kill Teresa. He looks so fragile. That is so funny. I used to say something similar to that back in the day, that it's hard for me to believe Ryan did it himself, like he needed an accomplice, because I honestly believe that Teresa could have kicked his ass. But anyway, I just remember a bit made me shout at the telly. Teresa's friend saying KZ is looking for a loophole or a technicality to get a guilty man out. I know, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, these are definitely loopholes and technicalities. This is hard. This is evidence and forensic results. It's like pull your head out of your, Interesting. Barb married Scott shortly after Brendan was arrested. Testify against you can't testify against your spouse. Well, there is that, that school of thought. There are people thinking that way. Didn't the FBI agent they have on the stand get fired and in trouble? He did. A lot of his cases in Florida. He had a lot of cases in Florida and stuff that ended up getting overturned because of his testimony and stuff. Yeah, that happened. I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember hearing about it. Does anybody working that case not understand how much blood there would be if he was raping or slitting, all that? Exactly. It's one of the main points that most of us have been screaming since the beginning. It doesn't make sense. Mitochondrial DNA is passed from mother to child. Right, exactly. The mitochondrial DNA is passed from mother to child. But the thing is that it also stands up the best to things like fire. It actually, because it's inside of the cell, it actually manages to retain its structure longer. Even if the rest of the cell is destroyed, it's possible sometimes to get an actual good reading from the mitochondrial DNA test. I'm sure Kratz will be having a press conference soon. I don't know about that, actually. It will be interesting to see what Kratz does. That's for sure. You have to be kidding me with the brutal murder scene. Yeah, right, actually, it's absolutely BS. There's no sign that Teresa was even there. I just watched the doc from Finland. Oh, greetings. Love it. Got another international supporter. About a group of people that were coerced to give a false confession. They had a specialist to contest it. Right. That might have been... That could have been the Central Park 5. That's very similar to what happened with the Central Park 5. Makes me squirm when Colburn in question about the plates. Collie is fighting some... Yeah, the way he does this, he's like, oh. You know, like, it's just like, dude, can you look any more guilty, dude? I'm not familiar with the law in America, but here a 16-year-old cannot be interviewed without... And hopefully someday that's the way it'll be here, too. And with a little help, hopefully we'll get there some point. How are you? Okay, oh, that's... Okay, why no fingerprints taken from the RAB? Yeah, I know. Why? We keep asking, but nobody answers. Well, you heard Kratz saying, because they were looking for DNA, and that's what they found. They found DNA. It's like, oh, so they just decided not to look for fingerprints then? It's like, the case is such a farce. It's such a ridiculous mess. Kratz is waiting for his balls to dry. Have you heard about the other show called... Yes, I believe I may have been interviewed for it. I think it's let's see here. I think it's time to narrow things down even more. We are looking at law enforcement planning evidence, multiple suspects, and coercion, and much more. There's too many different scenarios. Has the state refused to allow Zellner to test or view items on in the RAV4, like the fog light? Well, they were ready to deal until Judge Sukowicz denied the post-conviction motion. Then they were, like I said, they were pulling back, and so right now that's in limbo. In Norway, Avery and Dassey would never have been in prison. I'm shocked that the system works in the USA. Well, hopefully we're working on it. I understand restitution for the wrongfully convicted, but at the same time, if restitution wasn't an issue, I think the prosecutors and courts would be more inclined to admit a wrong. Possibly, but yeah. I mean, you got to think about how completely you ruin a man's life when you throw him in prison for 10 years. No matter what, the stigma sticks with him of whatever crime it was, and he can't get a job and all those things, and so the money is there to help them make a life that really wouldn't be possible because of what was taken from them. I mean, it's a horrible situation. It's why we need to be paying more attention when we're convicting. We need to be paying more attention at that point. These prosecutors need to be making what are called CIUs. These things are called, they're called CIUs. What it stands for is Conviction Integrity Units. And DA's offices themselves are starting to pop up in DA's offices around the United States, where they look at their own cases. They go back and review their own cases and stuff from the last 5-10 years, and they go back and take little looks on them and see if anything new has come out or whatever, and if there's any suggestion that somebody's wrongfully convicted, then they take care of it themselves. What's great about this, folks, and what is so great about this, and why we should all be wanting our DA's offices to develop these sort of things, is because it removes the adversarial process. Okay? It allows the DA's offices to go in and find the mistake on their own, and it gets streamlined through, boom, a lot quicker. The inmate ends up spending a lot less time in prison. The settlement ends up being a lot less, and it starts to make the whole situation manageable. Right? That's what needs to happen. That's okay. We have a lawyer now who's going to make everyone answer. Yeah, right. Oh, I totally get the money. There's not enough to fix these mistakes, but I think it is a reason they don't want to. Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I brought up the CIUs. They're the way to go, so. Lindsay, I understand, but Could they still try and collect that info now? Okay, Lindsay. Let me see what I miss here. Oh, Andy, the RAV4 was not checked for any fingerprints. Well, that RAV4 is still technically in lockup. They have it locked up. It's apparently buried underground somewhere. In a bin or something like that. Or in an underground structure of some sort or something. I'm sure they check the RAV4 for the fingerprint, but they must know that if they find them, it helps their case. Why wouldn't they check? If they find Stevens. But if they don't find Stevens, which I believe they suspected, they were afraid to test things on that vehicle because they were afraid it was going to start coming back to somebody else. And that's why I say they didn't want to go down that road of trying to find out who was harassing Teresa, because if they went down that road, if they took 2 steps down that road and something popped out, it could have blown their whole case against Avery. There's more evidence pointing to Ken Kratz being the killer, to be honest. Do you think it'll be a long wait for season 3 of MAM? I don't know that there will be yet. Like I said in one of my last videos, we're going to have to wait in probably about 5 or 6 months before the filmmakers even decide whether or not they're going to make another season. So we just got to be patient and wait for that to happen. Why not allow KZ to test the vehicle for fingerprints? They've now pulled back. They don't want her to test anything. They're hiding it. They're hiding what they can as long as they can. That's the explanation. It's messed up, but that's the explanation. That's just it. It is what it is, unfortunately. I'm surprised they did not destroy the RAV4. RAV4 buried just like most of the evidence. Steven can have easily crushed that RAV4, not sprinkle a bunch of leaves over it and hide it. Yeah, a couple sticks. Right. Ryan was harassing Teresa. That's one school of thought. Did Jerry and Dean ask for a fingerprint check on the RAV? I'm not sure. Do you think that the media exposure has helped or hindered the case? I think it's helping, honestly. It's getting more people understand what's going on, because this case was very difficult and very complicated. And now with MAN2, people are going to be able to sit down and binge for 10 hours and see a very, very clean and very concise explanation of a lot of these really strange things. So well, she wants to test the skull fragments. She wants to test the blinker light that was in the back of the RAV4. She wants to test that because they see brown paint, what looks like brown paint on it, which there was a Ford Pinto blocking the entrance, that back entrance into the Avery yard. There was like this brown Ford Pinto thing there, and so they're thinking now that the light hit that, and they want to test that brown mark on the light that's in the picture and all that. Lots of things, but right now the state is not having it. Are the bones still in evidence? I believe they are, yes. What did you think about the vastly different opinions of law with the judges when Knight Rider was arguing BD's confession? One judge saying she was deeply disturbed. Oh, it's a marvelous, it's really strange and marvelous thing to listen to. I actually have on my channel the entire oral arguments. If you guys wanted to go and listen to them, you could hear the whole thing. They only played probably about maybe 5 minutes on MAM2. It's about an hour and I think an hour, or it might be 50 minutes long. I think it's about 50 minutes long. You go on my channel and you can find it. It's oral arguments for the on-bank hearing, and it's there. You can check it out and you can listen to the whole thing. Are they blocking KZ from just fell asleep? Did I miss anything? You'll be able to go back and watch later and see if you did. Are the bones still in it? I believe so. I want to know if that's chapstick on the bullet. Yeah, that's one question. Absolutely. Has Kratz been on talking about missed? I haven't seen him yet. I haven't seen him out in force yet. If the case was over, why would they keep the RAV and not release that back to the family? Because it's evidence in the case. I don't know. I must have missed that oral arguments video. I need to listen to that. I was confused during those discussions in MMA too. Absolutely, yeah. If you go on my channel, if you go into my videos, you should be able to see it. Oral arguments for the on-bank review. Do you have a podcast? I actually don't do a podcast yet, but I am considering doing a podcast. Basically, YouTube is kind of where I started, and it's kind of my platform. So that's kind of where I've been. I've thought about moving, also opening in a Patreon account, but I haven't done it yet. I'd love it if Moira and Laura would release a bunch of raw footage that they got behind the cutting room floor. Yeah, that would be fun. No, she didn't. She had to be home before 3:30 that day. Per the burn barrel, what a-hole would burn the bones? You leave personal items visible on top of the ashes, right? Yeah, absolutely. Kratz telling Dean and Jerry that nothing of evidence was found, knowing they were only worried about the essay stuff and limited funds defending him. Yeah, they were desperately trying to hide the content on that computer because they knew Dean and Jerry could link it to Bobby, and that would have taken away their one of their star witnesses. Would they really still keep the bones after all that time? I'm not sure. I'm not going to give a definite answer. But usually evidence is evidence, and they usually hold on to it. I know that the skull fragments certainly are there because KZ was wheeling and dealing to get them, and apparently they were there to be gotten. So, what do you think the prosecution team is going to say whenever they finally speak? Well, they'll speak in the evidentiary hearing, but if you want to get an idea of what they're going to say, go look at some of my past videos. Particularly the Brady violation about the CD. You can see the state's responses. And Zellner filed many things. You can see the state's responses in all of those filings, and you can get an idea of what the state's going to say and which way they're going. Can you see if there's a place to view all the trial footage? I would love to see that as well. If you find it, Sean, you give me a link. But if I find it, I'll make sure I give you a link. I wondered if she did then, why it wasn't reported she didn't turn up. Yeah. Thank you for bringing awareness to this. If I got anything from season 2, it's that we must fight not just for Stephen and Brendan, but for criminal justice reform. Exactly. The corruption has to end. Like I said, I'm personally focusing pretty hard on wrongful convictions of youth. I'm starting to do a series of videos called WCOY, standing for wrongful convictions of youth. But I totally agree. Yes, we all need to care about criminal justice reform. It burns my ass. Those lawyers are doing sold out shows. They took, well, yeah. I'm not that critical of Dean and Jerry, although I wish they would have brought in a blood spatter expert for sure. I know they were working with limited funds. The state has unlimited resources, but now Stephen has unlimited resources, and now you can see the tide beginning to turn. So, what is going on with the bombshell that Brendan was led to the hood of the car and then they magically decided to test it? Absolutely. Oh no, we've known that for a long time. It just wasn't covered in MAM1. The reason why it got discovered is because Ken Kratz came out after the first Making a Murderer and started talking about planting sweat on the hood latch and blah, 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 blah. All the crap that he spewed, right? So all of us began looking into that. And that's when we started finding all this out. We started finding out that Tom and Mark were basically telling Brendan, leading him right to it to make him say something about the hood and the hood latch and stuff. I mean, this all came out after MAM. It's just, we've all known about it for a while, but now that MAM2 came out, more people are becoming aware of some of these things that those of us who've been here all this time that we've known all along. I mean, these things go on and on. There's so many little things, odd things that don't line up, things that don't match up, things that don't make sense when it comes to the state and the prosecution. So, yeah, definitely. I think Dean and Jerry are doing good in what they are doing and giving their side when Kratz is giving his insane side. But I wish that the money was going to Steven. Sure, it would be nice. But, you know, it's going to cost Manitowoc a lot more than $36 million when they are released. Well, yeah, that's just it. It's getting to the point now where you're going to have two of them. Steven now for double the amount of time, essentially. Yeah, the price and the way that they continue to fight it. And I mean, think about the resources that they've poured into keeping Brendan in jail and Steven in jail. All the money that they had to spend fighting Brendan in the federal court. I mean, all the resources and all the money that they've spent and thrown at the Avery case originally and now and on the appeals. Wouldn't it have just been easier to do the right thing? I mean, seriously. Exactly. Money should go to Steven. The swab they claim was from under the hood definitely wasn't. Clean as a whistle, and yeah, it didn't have any of the black carbon from that engines make. Absolutely. How about the rear door handle and the blood on it? Yeah, absolutely. That's another suspicious thing, but they didn't get a profile from it. How about the money from Kosaric? Could they say that he made the agreement under duress? I'm not sure. If they make them take an Alford plea, they won't pay. Oh, that's true, but I don't think that KZ's not taking an Alford plea. I'll guarantee you that. Thoughts about the coroner being barred from the property? Oh, that's an absolute travesty. I've been talking about that. You guys may find it funny when you start going back through some of my old videos that I've been talking about these things for the last 2 years. But yeah, the coroner being barred has always been an issue. And the fact is, she wasn't just barred by Kosaric, right? Two other city officials, somebody from the DA's office and somebody from, I think, the mayor's office or something like that, was calling her to tell her, you should back off, basically. I mean, that's crazy. And then when you find out when there's a dead body in Manitowoc, she is actually the ranking law enforcement officer. She can arrest the sheriff. I mean, it's just so bizarre, the whole thing with the coroner. I feel like I should change my username to not related to Tom. Not related to Tom. I saw an interview with Strang recently. He said, dang it. He said he's worried that he might be guilty. He's worried that he might be guilty. I near shit. Yeah, he said that. I saw the interview you're talking about. Look, Dean is a very cautious cat, and just trust me, he is more worried that Steven is rotting in prison as an innocent man than he is that Steven's guilty. Why no mentions of liar Len Kaczynski, you mean? I've talked about Len. Do you think the judges were in... those majority judges at the 7th Circuit Court have got me really just not in a good place right now. I don't know about those ones over there. Where could the coroner have gone for help? Because, well, the point is she chose not to make a fight of it. And when you have two higher up city officials calling you, that's probably how they were countering the fact that they knew she was the highest ranking official, is that they were getting higher up city officials to talk to her so that she would realize that if she didn't play ball, that she would eventually probably be getting something coming from them. And so it was probably enough to make her back off. Keep the coroner away, but made sure that they get items, yeah, with Teresa's DNA and bring them over to the Avery yard instead of to the crime lab. Right, absolutely. It made me sick hearing that Uyghur was so rude to the coroner. Yeah, I know, right? Dude's a jerk. Uyghur's a jerk. So, did Scott he buy the property? As far as I understand, he bought that property where that RAV4 was seen. Yeah. If the bones were on the Avery burn pit all the time, wouldn't the dog on the property have moved? Yeah, most likely. I think Ryan has stalker issues. Yeah. Star 67 because it wasn't his car. Just joined the chat. Have you talked about Zellner's tweet today? No, I haven't. I'm not. Which one? Which one was today? She's been making so many tweets lately. I've been forgetting or mixing them up. Karma slapped the shit out of Ken in the form of a stroke. Why no mention of Lieutenant Lank in MAM2? Oh, I think actually did they? Well, because I think because that was covered in MAM1 and they were trying to stick to the most recent developments. But the murder, Bobby and Scott, is like a seven. It was like the 7th Circuit judges have no compassion. I know, right? The majority judges seem to have no compassion. The name of the video is making a murder evidence left out. I wish the coroner had made a report about being excluded, although not sure what her options really were. I feel like she gave, yeah. Why wasn't there a coroner, period? There was, but it was Calumet County's coroner. Ryan is like Fez from that 70s show, always hiding in Teresa's closet. I wanted to punch Kaczynski when he was trying to take credit for Brendan's appeal, like, you got that confession and turned it over, you loser. Right. On BD on bank, Hail Mary would be like 40 cases out of 12K. Right, exactly. The 8,000 cases in which 80 are heard is SCOTUS. Oh, yeah, okay. Judge Hamilton was the minority judge in the original. Exactly. Exactly. Yes, that's all true. What Andrew Burns just said here is all true. You missed my comic. Okay, sorry, Chris. Let me go back up here a second. Hillegas, man, how did he have that paper and he knew about the taillight? Right. Yes, he had the day from her, he had the page from her day planner, and he was lying about the blinker. To what about the planner? Hillegas drove after her and killed her, ditched the RAV4, and Bobby brought it back. Maybe. Okay, Chris, I did cover your comment now. Okay, Zellner tweeted that whoever planted the bones on 11/4 or 5th was familiar with Bear because he didn't bark. Oh, yeah. I think she's made a tweet like that before, actually. Why was TH's hard drive never recovered, entered as evidence? Actually, Teresa's computer was in evidence. Dean and Jerry reviewed her emails, and I believe they even used a couple of her emails. Hour and 17. Did you notice Bobby talking to the prosecutor? I noticed the picture of him talking to Tom Fassbender, the investigator. Do you think the on-bank judges blocked BD release for political reasons? I can't rule it out, Alonzo. I can't rule it out. How did he get the planner? Right. It's inexplicable that Ryan would have a page that she wrote on that day. It's inexplicable that he would have that because she never got a chance to head back home to drop off her day planner. Bobby strikes me as someone who would take his own life if cornered. What would happen if he did? Well, I don't know. If he did, the evidence is the evidence. And it would go on. It would continue. The evidence would continue on. The only difference would be in that scenario, there would be nobody to convict. So, I don't know. That's the only way I can answer that. It's kind of a grim kind of topic, but. Oh, you're so welcome. Flaming TARDIS. Oh, we have a TARDIS lover here. Awesome. Hey, I'm a Doctor Who fan, by the way. Huge Doctor Who. I have another channel about Doctor Who. It's purely money at this point. 1 to 200 million. It's going to be big settlement. Absolutely. Tell us about the coroner. Why did they not like her? Oh, well, she was known for not really playing ball. there was a case in Manitowoc where a person had been hit by a car, and I guess the officer, when pulling up to the scene, ran the person over again. And the officers wanted the coroner to say that the person had died from their own injuries before they showed up, and what the accident that they had, ran the person over. And the coroner was unwilling to play ball. And as we know, in Manitowoc and all that, people that aren't willing to play ball, well, they get dealt with. Or they receive harsh treatment, which is what this coroner was receiving. Fassbender has no eyebrows during his interview. Whoa, all of a sudden there's a lot more comments. Zona pretty much said that at the federal level it's impossible to win. Yeah, all that. But I think Brendan almost pulled it off. I mean, he split the federal judges that heard his case. I think Bobby and Scott killed her, okay? There's a lot of people believing that right now. A previous president declined the opportunity for a pardon, stating that it was a state issue. What did you think Trump would do? Oh, Obama said he couldn't because it was a state issue. Absolutely. Basically because of AEDPA. You understand? That's why Obama had to say that, right? He had to say he couldn't do anything about it because AEDPA prevents the federal government from stepping in any way. That's how bad it is. It's crazy. It's crazy. Kratz tries to make out Teresa was in the trailer because of the receipt. I know. It's so weird. Opinions on Barb. Does she know more like KZ thinks? Could be. Don't know for sure on that one. How long do you think Mom and Pa Avery got left? I hope they have many years. Yeah, if you don't play ball, you get your ass bender on you, right. What was the significance about many of the bones being found in the Manitowoc? Yeah, well, that's because they weren't found on Redon's property. They were actually found on a property owned by Manitowoc County. It's very interesting, really. But that's the significance there. Something that was new to me in MEM2 was the eyewitness who saw Colburn at the gas station and told him about seeing that. That was all a pretty recent development. That stuff there about Colburn, that all came out like in the last 6 months. That's all a pretty recent development. That thing, maybe it might have been within the last 8 months, but I mean, somewhat recent, that development. Lisa said that on the date of Teresa Halbach's homicide, Scott Tagg did not show up for work. Scott said multiple times he went to work that day. I know, so many conflicting reports. It's ridiculous. What about Bobby murdered and Scott covered up? That's a possibility. That's a theory that's being explored right now. Isn't it at federal level now for Brendan? No, Brendan was denied. He was shut down. And they're regrouping and getting ready to file another post-conviction motion for him. Come on, Erekose. What's your theory on what happened? Not political correctness. No political correctness allowed. I've been pretty upfront, folks. The person harassing Teresa. I need to know who that is. It could be Ryan. But my gut tells me, look at that guy. Whoever that is. And if it's Ryan, great. But so I'm not pulling any punches. I believe that person could have been stalking Teresa and saw that, you know, she was leaving the salvage yard. She knew about all the stuff, or that he knew, if he was, you know, kind of stalking her, he knew about everything that Avery was going through. He probably figured he saw it, could have seen it as an opportunity. I need to know who this guy was stalking her. I need to know. I don't think Scott Taddock would go out of his way for those kids. I don't think he would. Dude, it would Dude, it wasn't even Scott's property at the time. It wasn't Scott's property at the time, but he bought it after. Did Bobby know Hillegas? I've heard some people say that they knew each other, but Bobby claims he didn't. MEM2, MEM2, I'm giving 10 stars, dude. I loved being able to see all of Zellner's experts doing their experiments, getting to see all of that visual, all of that, getting to tell Brendan's story so that everybody out there can be familiar with Brendan's story and what happened to him. 10 out of 10. If it was to go to the Supreme Court, could Trump do anything about it? I don't know. I don't think so. The Supreme Court didn't even want to do anything about it. So we all want him innocent, but it was likely him. Simplest solution, likely the answer. Okay, well, looks like we have somebody that's of the opinion that Stephen and Brendan are guilty. But I do believe that the cops would move Teresa's car. I believe that's something they might do. Sharon Young, they are not rich. So not on Trump's radar. I think it was Hillegas. Okay, that's like I said, a fair thought, a fair theory. What about TH's hard drive? Never presented. Okay, that's the second time somebody said that about TH's hard drive. Teresa Halbach's computer was reviewed. Dean and Jerry pulled some of her emails from it and used them. I'm one of the few who thinks Barb knew it was Bobby. Yeah, very well. A lot of people are thinking that. What's your opinion on Barb's call to Stephen about drop it or you will have a dead... Yeah. When they started accusing her son, when Zellner started accusing her son, she got very emotional. She got very, yeah. She was saying some things that were very, she was in a kind of in a state of despair, I guess the best way I can put it. Wonder if Casey is considered looking at bank account records, see if any money was exchanged. Yeah, possibly. Not to be gross, but if they swabbed the keyboard and the mouse on the computer, it would be... Scott Taddock shouted down the hall. It wasn't even on the property that day, you idiot. He didn't need to be. The murder happened near his own property, right? Look at the fact how KZ finally took the case after MAM1. Maybe some other revelations will come from MAM2, which is the goal to begin with. Right. Was a forensic anthropologist ever sent to examine the bones? Were all the bones tested? Why do we not know if all of them were human? Well, KZ was basically making her case for they were all identified as human. At least that's what I recall. MAM2 was a very slow start, and Zellner seemed to stretch things a lot. I almost quit watching, but at least 2 episodes were really good. What do you think about the 4:45 call from Stephen without call block? I just think he might have just picked up and dialed a phone number, not thinking. I don't know. I sometimes, I have habits that I do that I sometimes don't always remember. Sometimes I just do it like the old way anyway. It's weird. I don't know what to say, but I think Stephen was trying to dial *67 most of the time, but he may have forgot here and there. It's hard to say. Surely there was being harassed. She would have told a friend. Well, we know that Tom Pierce can attest to the fact that she was being harassed. I don't blame Barbara though. I would be done with everyone. Right. She was very just distraught at that point. I think it was Bobby Dassey because he flipped on his family. Yeah, that's makes it look bad for him, kind of. I've been on this feed since he had 50. Is there 50? Because it's telling me there's only 6. So sad to see Ma and Pa, yeah. No, and the fact that Bobby does not visit his brother in prison sounds like guilt. You're doing an amazing job, mate. Thank you. No idea what time it is where you are, but it's 1:22 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. It is currently 7:30 p.m. for me. I know a lot sympathize with Barb. Got railroaded hard and oblivious to... Yeah, absolutely. This has aged them. They are... Yeah, absolutely. Stephen's parents, this has kind of taken its toll on them. Having their eldest son in prison most of his life and stuff. Absolutely. Bobby's life is pretty much over after this doc. Maybe. I've called people who have ignored me with star 67, and I have yet to kill them. Who do you think the source is talking about? The funds in the Avery safe in the kitchen. Who it was, and what Teresa was on Teresa's computer. Sorry, a little bit of weird glitches going on here on my end. That was strange. It's nearly 3:30 a.m. in Ireland. Oh shoot. Wonder what the older brother Brian contradicting Bobby for KZ. How does that how that dynamic is now? Yeah, you gotta wonder how Brian and Bobby are probably getting along at this point. Stalker is a person who would move into their ex's house after death. Yeah, absolutely, Chris Wheeler. Ryan has plenty of things that make him look suspicious as hell. I mean, that's why I named my first video about him, Ryan Hillegas is quite a suspicious fellow. The second video I did about him, Ryan Hillegas is dodgy as hell. You know, it just goes on and on. It's, you know. So, alright, folks. It has now been 1 hour and 30 minutes. I think that's probably good enough. So, unless anybody else has a burning question that they want to ask real quick, I would advise everybody to please, if you're on Twitter, go to the link to the tweet that I left to the tweet below. Please like that tweet. I really want to get Stephen Drizzen and Laura Nyrider in the Control Question t-shirts posing for a photo. I may use it as my header on Twitter. I don't know, but I would really love to get that. So if y'all can help me out with that, I would appreciate it by liking that tweet, possibly retweeting it yourself. But really, please, thank you very much and help me out with that. Who's possessive? Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, Teresa, Mike is, yeah, definitely. Stay close to the investigation. I will, Chris. Oh, yes, like this video, everybody. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Julie. Oh, yes, thank you, Andy. So, that's another great session. It's absolutely been a pleasure with, you know, talking to all of you guys this weekend and doing these live sessions and getting to talk about all this stuff in real time. It's been an absolute blast, and thank you everybody for showing up and coming here to be part of this. It's just it's a lot of fun for me, and I hope it's a lot of fun for all you guys. And feel free to send an email to me. I'm going to leave a link, an email address in the info below the video. Feel free to email me if you want to get one of these shirts, as you can see right here. I have them in this color, which is the cobalt. I have them in black, and I have them in green. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. You all have a very great night, too. We'll see you guys. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe.